Welcome back. If you thought the Democratic Party's foreign policy chaos was troubling and also the embarrassment of trying to impeach Trump for securing our interests, just wait until you see what's happening on the domestic front, where identity politics, socialism to the point of communism, and ideological extremism are no longer French. They're winning primaries. This week, in a historic and frankly alarming upset in the New York City Democratic mayoral primary, Zohran Mamdani, a self proclaimed socialist, trust fund baby who never really held a job until he was elected as a statesman, a vocal anti Israel activist, defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo to become the party's nominee. Now, former Governor Cuomo had his own baggage. Anybody recall COVID and also the sexual harassment scandals, which caused him to step down from his seat? But let's pause on that. A man who froze rent prices in his district called for slashing police budgets and has openly aligned with pro-Palestinian extremist rhetoric. Just beat a former governor in America's biggest city. This isn't just changing of the guard. This is a hostile takeover. And let's face it, and I will agree with Ben Stiller when he stated that this was no better than this Democratic primary, which had a very small turnout, really is the cool kids going after whoever was going to promise all this freebie stuff, because it was free, 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 which a lot of the promises Mamdani made, are not even within his power as a mayor if he were to win. But it's not just that. 60% of educated liberal white voted for him. And let's be clear who's behind it. Mamdani didn't win this on his own. He had the full endorsement and organizational firepower of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the so-called squad, Bernie Sanders, the same politicians who called Iran's strike grounds for impeachment, downplayed the Hamas terrorism, called to defund ICE, and called to defund the police department, which Mamdani is all for, and promote economic justice through rent strikes and wealth seizure. What we are watching is the nationalization of the AOC model. Or is it? I mean, this is a microcosm, but it is interesting to see. Even though less than 4% of the people voted in the primary, and remember, Mayor Adams is running as an independent, but it starts in districts like the Bronx and Queens. It grows in city councils and state legislatures, and now it's reaching the mayor's office in one of the world's most influential cities. And here's the kicker. When Mamdani won and Cuomo conceded, it wasn't the Republicans who sounded the alarm. It was Chris Cuomo, and it wasn't because his brother conceded. Yes, Chris Cuomo, former CNN anchor, liberal talk show host, brother of the man who just lost. He called AOC a deranged Democrat. I completely agree with him. Not because of her tone, but because she's winning. She's killing her party, he said bluntly, and there's no one left to stop her. It's rare to see that kind of honesty from the left, but Chris Cuomo is right. Let's look at what's actually on the agenda for Mamdani and his progressive allies. Rent control so extreme that small landlords are selling off and leaving. Abolishing qualified immunity for police and defunding police, eliminating overtime for police. Support for pro-Hamas slogans like globalize the intifada. That's step to America, people. This is extreme Islamism. I am not saying that Islam, the religion or Muslims are bad. This is the extremists, the Sharias, the ones that want to kill us. Put women back in, not even into the closet or back in the kitchen, about complete subjugation of our rights. And most chilling of all, celebrating violent uprising against Jews worldwide. This man does not believe. He states, "Oh, Israel has a right to. Israel is, has a right to be a state like anybody else, but they have to follow through international law." But then on the next breath, he's saying that if Bibi Netanyahu steps foot in New York City, he's going to have him arrested. On what authority? I don't know. This guy doesn't understand what the restrictions are of a mayor and what it takes. And most chillingly of all, the normalization of anti-American, anti-capitalist ideology as mainstream policy. This is what's going. And Bernie Sanders is like, oh, this is great. He's falling in. All he's been stating is free, free, free. And he's courting the young, educated, white voter. That's who he's courted. 60% of Black and Hispanic voters voted for Cuomo. That actually showed up for this primary. And that's another major shift for the Democratic Party, because before it used to be all wins went through Black voters. Not so much now. Chris Cuomo compared his own party to MAGA, that this is the new MAGA extremism on the left. He said, "We are now on both sides in a period of extremism. The left is embracing prejudice, targeting Jews, defending radical Islamism, just as the right once flirted with white nationalism." Let that sink in. The Democratic Party of today isn't drifting left. They're not slightly left. It has been hijacked by the hard left ideologues who use identity politics as shield for dangerous ideas. And while the mainstream press might try to hide it, the international community is starting to notice. Because while Trump was coordinating a ceasefire between Israel and Iran after a successful limited military strike, while Western allies, Gulf leaders, and even skeptical U.S. voters were applauding the effort as a path towards stability, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party was doing what? Screaming imperialism and promoting people who sympathize with terrorists. Again, those that want death for America. So here's what the extremism is costing New York. Anti-Semitic attacks up 42% in the past year, much of it tied to pro-Palestinian protests. And let's all remember, the second largest Jewish community is in New York City, second only to Tel Aviv, Israel. Violent crime rising in progressive-led boroughs. Small business closures driven by rent policy and tax increases. Oh, yeah, and he wants to further increase taxes on the top 1%, which he can do through a city tax. And now a mayoral frontrunner who sees free enterprise as oppression and condemns border enforcement as violence, who swore that he will direct the police to interfere and block and prevent ICE from doing their jobs. On what authority? This isn't a New York story. It's a preview of what happens when a major political party loses its spine. And that's what it did. And we saw it in 2020. We saw it during the BLM. We saw it when they were pushing this transing of kids and pushing the fact that men should play against women in sports and trying to eliminate the Title IX protections for women that are only 52 years old. When it lets slogans replace strategy, elevates TikTok radicals over people who've actually governed, or heck, actually worked, had a business, had a home, and when it decides the loudest voices must also be the wisest. America is watching. We're watching a Democratic Party that used to produce the likes of FDR, JFK, Bill Clinton, now embrace democratic socialism, cancel culture, and racial division. And the irony, it was the liberal, white, educated, rich, middle class to wealthy kids that voted for him, but yet the Democratic Party is always extolling of how evil the white people are. And while this transformation might excite the radical base, The rest of the country should be definitely looking at this with some concern, with pause. Because if they can take over New York, then they can take over Chicago, LA, which California is extremely left, but not this left, and potentially Washington. And then what we're going to see is a country that was once built on freedoms, capitalism, that American dream, which I am a product of, thanks to my parents being able to escape communism, escape Castro's regime. Not once has socialism worked. Look at the history books, but no, we're going to do this. Everybody's going to have everything free, and we're going to get rid of the cops and everything. You know what? I welcome you to Florida, New Yorkers. We already started seeing major hedge funds coming to Florida, leaving New York. New York City, that is dependent on Wall Street and the likes. But they want to vilify them and control them. Again, the good news, the American people are intelligent, they are observant, and they see through this charade. Polls show broad support for Trump's handling of Iran. Support for Israel is rising, not falling. And even traditional Democrats are beginning to question who really speaks for them anymore. So let me leave you with this. From Mamdani to Minneapolis, from AOC to academia, the left isn't drifting, they're charging. And unless we meet the charge with courage, clarity, and conviction, they won't just win city halls, they'll win the narrative. And that's a battle we, the people, can't afford to lose. So as we've seen in New York with the rise of radical voices like Mamdani and the growing grip of socialism on urban politics, the consequences of ideological extremism aren't just theoretical. They're being felt in our cities, in our courts, and in the way we do business. And that's why I'm especially honored to bring on our next guest, Christina Villaboa Abel, a respected real estate and business litigation attorney who's been on the front lines of how these political and economic shifts are affecting property owners, investors, and small business owners across Florida and beyond. And she's here to talk with us about what's happening on the ground legally and economically and why it matters to you. Don't go anywhere. That conversation is coming up right after this.